Welcome back to A Creative Affair. I'm Len and I'm here with Brie, and today we're talking about creative indulgence. Do you indulge yourself when you're out taking photography, creating art, making beautiful things, or do you even feel a little bit guilty? This week's topic came to me when Brie was saying that she felt that it was an indulgence to be out photographing in a really beautiful place, and it really sparked a bit of a question like, did you feel guilty?
Oh my goodness. No. So the short answer is no. And because this was kind of my plan, I think that maybe is making the difference. But what feels indulgent to me is that, so I'm working on, we'll just spill the beans. I'm working on submitting some images to you for Lens Journal. And anyone who doesn't know about Lens Journal, you can go on his website and find out all about that. So I'm working on submitting some images, and I'm actually near the place where this collection is created from. And so I've been, I'm here, I'm nearby for a few days. It's out in the desert in Nevada, and I'm going to the place and indulging in photography. And then I'm coming back and then indulging in the editing. And so the whole weekend, besides recording this podcast with you, is just all about immersing myself in my photography and that place. And there's nothing else that I feel like I need to be doing because I'm away from my house, besides making sure my physical needs are taken care of. So that feels really indulgent because there's literally nothing else that I have on my schedule except just creating. And that is really, that is super fun, but it feels like a really big bowl of dark chocolate ice cream with like fudgy truffle pieces inside.
It is indulgent, isn't it? And it's such a beautiful thing to do it. And the reason I picked up on it, because to me, the word indulgent had a air of naughtiness to it. And when I sit down an evening and have my bit of, I really love dark chocolate with a bit of caramel in it and lots of sugar, and it's a naughty indulgence. And yet I don't think that way when I go out to take or create art and do those things, but sometimes I do feel a little bit guilty for making time for myself when I should be doing other sort of things. And perhaps your words triggered something in me about this word of indulgence and making time to make art. It's not always a reward for my life to go and make art in that sort of sense. I actually have to put other things aside to indulge myself in my artwork.
I think there's a lot of mind play going on here. I could for sure think this is an indulgence and have it be like kind of like a guilty pleasure, a little affair with my photography, right? But because I've taken all of like that thinking, like you mentioned the word should, and should for me is like this light bulb word that when that goes off, I'm like, what am I shoulding about? What is that about? Because do you know what I'm saying? Right? So if I thought that I should be doing something else, yes, I would feel the guilt of indulging in it because I'm not expecting myself to do other things except, just doing the photography and whatnot. Then I don't feel any guilt about any of it. For sure, there are a lot of other things I could be doing. Like I could be catching up on my sleep. I could be, I could be returning all kinds of emails. I could be doing my, working on my business. But I've just made the conscious decision that I'm not going to do it. And once I did that, then I'm just allowing myself the freedom to be completely wrapped up in my creating. And that to me feels super indulgent. There's something beautiful about that word, right? That's why I said the dark chocolate. I'm glad you mentioned dark chocolate because it's beautiful. But there is something I could see how you or I, if we are indulging in something that's maybe when we're thinking we should be doing something else, that could feel, then we would feel really guilty. Do you feel guilty about creating often? I'm not assuming that you do. I'm just wondering.
I find when I'm creating, actually out in the field making art, no. But when I'm processing or putting together a book or some of those sort of things, I do feel that there's moments of should. That word, that nasty word should, starts to appear in my mind. And I do have these moments of feeling guilty. It's really fascinating. I'm going to bring us back to art therapy for a moment. I was doing this wonderful exercise in art therapy, and we covered a table with words that were values, and we started taking them away, the ones that weren't us. And, we started with 100, and then we took away 30, and then we just kept going and going and going till there was 5 left on the table. And then there was 4. And the therapist kept making us take them away until there was 1 left, Brie, and only 1. Which value did you have as the highest? And it was a light bulb moment when I sat there looking at the table, and the word was creativity for me. And I'd taken away things like home, family, love, relationships, teaching, education, all of these things that I would say are such important things to me, and that I value my family more than anything else, like my son and my partner and all those wonderful people in there. But I was left with creativity, and I could feel guilty about that. But the honest truth is that I've put my creativity above so many other things in my life as a value. And so, because I've lost things in that process. I've lost money. I've lost lost a house. I don't own my own home, etc., because I invest in my art and I put that first. I've lost partners because I have put my art ahead of the relationship. This was a slight bold moment, and it sort of illuminates why sometimes, well, most of the time, I actually don't have that guilt feeling because I'm actually choosing to make that a life priority. I find that absolutely fascinating.
Completely. And you said choosing, and I think I referenced like a conscious decision, right? And I think choosing, we do that a lot very consciously, right? Like on purpose, I'm going to make this choice, and you've chosen this creative life to do, certain things. And there are sometimes trade-offs when we make choices about things, right? Like I know if I want to spend my whole weekend or actually for real, it's 3 days, that's why it feels really indulgent, because it's like 3 full days. And
I need to ask you about this because this comes back to this word indulgent. Why 2 days as being okay and 3 suddenly becomes indulgent?
oh
What's
no,
going on there?
2 days is still indulgent. Maybe
But
1 day is not so much, but like for me, putting aside all of the things that I could be doing for a bunch of days. But why is that any different than like having a vacation? When you're on vacation, sometimes we're disconnected from the world, and we just like, I love to just allow myself, if I'm traveling with my husband or whatever, and I've done that a bunch this month, just kind of put into, sometimes I wasn't even I didn't even have cell coverage, right, to check emails or whatever. And so allowing myself to just spend time with my husband traveling, it feels indulgent right now because it's just me. And I'm not saying in a bad way, but this is like something that's really personal for me. Like my husband isn't even here. I'm not watching a movie with him at night. He's at home. He's working and, taking care of the house. And I'm just basically doing whatever I want to do. so don't tell anyone this is how I lead my life. Len, I actually looked up the word indulgent. What's interesting is it says satisfy or yield freely to. And I love that word
Ah.
freely, because if we are free, we're yielding freely. This is why I love looking up definitions, because if we're yielding freely to our creative passions, I mean, we do have this, like the podcast is called A Creative Affair, right? So if we're yielding to those and we want to yield freely, then we don't have anything like guilt hanging over us, right? So how can we really enjoy this time of being indulgent and giving into our creative passions freely without having like any sort of pressure or guilt or anything else popping up that doesn't allow us to do it freely?
Mm. So much of that's society, isn't it? And outside pressures of family, work, and those sort of things that we're not supposed to indulge ourselves too much. We're supposed to be active contributors to our family and society, and selfish things like being an artist can be frowned upon by certain people in society, and yet it's an incredibly valuable thing. Not only for society but also for ourselves. It's a centering. It's a time to relax and find ourselves, and it's also a time to be who we should be as we're doing that. I notice that I have a different emotional state from when I'm working, because I work as a photographic teacher. So I get to go away on a trip leading as a tour guide and as a mentor and as a teacher. And I actually get to photograph while I'm earning a living. And then there's other times when I go away on a holiday, and it's a working holiday, usually to explore an area and to photograph it and to make more art. So I tie those into my head together as well. But I have a very different attitude on that time when it is more self indulgent. This plays off with the sort of work that I make. And I notice that the more relaxed I am, the better the art is. And if I'm feeling guilty about taking time for myself, the quality of my art really starts to drop. If it's a reward or it's a timeout and it's a really special indulgence, then the quality of the art goes up in with this relaxing moment that's there.
Right? Because all of a sudden we're like excited about whatever it is that we're going to do. I also had a thought, like I'm spending multiple days doing this. I think indulging in our art can look different for everyone. It could really be like taking a long lunch break and doing whatever it is. I think what makes it feel indulgent this period for me right now is it's out of the normal for me. So, like, what if you had the chocolate ice cream with the dark chocolate truffles for breakfast, right? That feels kind of indulgent, right?
Which has been done, I have to admit, or cream on my porridge with
Oh
brown
my
sugar.
goodness. Okay, I have to tell you, this is such a side note, but my husband and I, we've been to Italy, and we woke up and we're like, we're not hungry, so we're just going to go out walking. And he goes, I think I need something to eat. And I said, I think the gelato place is open. So more than one time we had gelato for breakfast. But these are things that you indulge in when it's like you're on vacation and it's kind of out of the normal and it feels fun and exciting, right? If you were doing that every single day, it wouldn't feel special, right? I think the trick is really what we're talking about is to just releasing all of that pressure and stress and guilt about doing it, because sometimes every once in a while, my husband and I will eat something and my husband will go, oh, I feel so guilty about eating this. And I'm like, tastes good to me. Right? Because I already decided that I'm going to eat it. It wasn't like something I did on accident. Right. So I don't love living with guilt. So I like to make the conscious decisions about things. So rather than doing something and then feeling all guilty inside and terrible, I think guilt feels really terrible, by the way.
takes us back, and it's quite a depressive thing, really, isn't it? Because we're focused in the past about something that we've done or we're doing right now. We're adding excuses to it. We're trying to justify. We're throwing all those things around. And as you said, the answer is to actually dive in and to really enjoy it with that decision. Well, I'm going to be here. I'm going to make the most of it. And it doesn't have to be a guilty pleasure. It can be, as you say, a lovely indulgence to take the time out and to enjoy that space and to be there. And if you were doing it every day, this idea of a holiday or doing it away from home or doing it somewhere, we'd have to replace that with being just present with ourselves, because what this always boils back down to is the more present and connected we are with the sense of our art and who our inner selves, the more the art flows, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And, I was talking with a friend actually last night, and I said, because we were talking about workflow and how often we edit and things like that. And I said, I'm spending literally a few days like immersed in photography and editing, and I don't feel bad at all. It feels completely amazing. And if I had allowed myself to feel bad about it in any way, then my creativity would not be there. Those guilty feelings would keep me, or stressed or whatever, would keep me out of creativity. And that is the opposite of what I want. And so just allowing myself to just give in to having creativity free flow during these few days is super fun. And that's what we want, right? Because we're so passionate about what we do. Why not have fun and totally enjoy the doing of it?
Exactly. We've got to enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, and not get so caught up in our minds.
Totally. I'm curious for our audience. How have you indulged in your own creativity lately? Or can you plan to have an indulgent moment in the near future? How can you do that? And be able to release any sort of guilt or stress or whatever you have. Could be an hour, could be a couple of days. Please indulge in your creative passions. I think, Len, we both feel this way. Allowing ourselves to really take part in our creative passions and have a ton of fun doing it.
As you're speaking there, I was thinking it's about giving ourselves permission to do it, to not worry about those other things, and restructure your thoughts about what it is that you're doing for yourself in this process. And I think that's something we'll save for another talk. This idea that it's important for who we are, and if we start to prioritize that in our lives, it can be a beautiful thing to indulge ourselves in our artwork. And I think in that art making process, it's a wonderful thing. Well, sounds like a good note to finish on.
Thank you for joining us in our creative affair. If you love the passion we bring to this creative content, please support the podcast by sharing with a friend, subscribing, and leaving us a review. Thanks. If you'd like to learn more about creative photography, visit lenmetcalf.com, where you can find links to Len's photography school, videos, and publications. He would love to invite you to sign up to his newsletter. To find out more about my work, including my photography and mentoring in my Creative Confidence group coaching program, visit creativemindscoach.com. See you next time.